Am I the asshole for deciding to postpone the wedding over a comment my fiance made about my scar? I, female, have a visible scar on the side of my neck. It's been there for over 6 years, and no one has ever commented it or made any negative remarks about it. However, my fiance would make comments about my scar and make it seem as flirty like, for instance, complaining he has kissed every part of my body except my neck because of the scar, and how the scar looked like a kid messed up such a great art, referring to my look, etc. etc. I told him I didn't appreciate it even if he was using the scar to be flirty with me, but he insisted he loves me anyway. Our wedding is approaching and I've been busy with the wedding planning, and days ago my fiance and I and in-laws were talking about the wedding and was talking about how we're doing to finally be married. He laughed and said, "I'm marrying you minus the scar." I was stunned when he said that, especially in front of his family. I was so upset I got up and walked out of the room. We had a big fight and he kept saying I was being a drama queen and that he said nothing wrong. He dubbed it down when I said I'd consider postponing the wedding because of his comment, and he called me crazy. His mom said I'm obviously traumatized by my scar to let it ruin my marriage with her son and suggested therapy. She told me that the scar was the issue, not her son, who loves as I am and chose me to be his wife. I don't know, I really feel horrible right now. I don't know if I said the right thing about postponing the wedding and whether I'm overreacting in this situation. My girlfriends have previously said that my fiance shouldn't even be bringing up the scar like that. Am I the asshole for not helping my brother and my ex with the kid they had together and telling my parents to step up if help is deserved? I, 25 male, was dating Jade, 24 female, for 4 years. We broke up several months ago when I found out she'd been sleeping with my brother Tommy, 24 male, for months, or maybe even years. Hell, maybe they were secretly cheating since the start. I don't even know anymore. Jade and I lived together, and I thought we were expecting a baby together. Then I walked in on them. I didn't catch them in the middle of sex or even in bed, but it looked intimate and way too comfortable. They told me I was imagining things, and I said I didn't believe them. Tommy said he'd never do me like that. We're brothers, and we're there for each other, and other things like that. I broke up with Jade. She and Tommy still said I was crazy and nothing was going on. But once Jade realized I was serious and I wasn't supporting her through the pregnancy any further and wanted a DNA test, Tommy came crawling to me, begging for me not to put Jade or his kid at risk. He told me I could be the dad and raise the baby and he'd never be with Jade again, but she wanted what I could offer her and the baby, and he wanted the best for his kid. Our parents were shocked by what had happened, but also frustrated because Tommy was bouncing from job to job after college. He had no stability or state income, and Jade wasn't in a much better position, while I had gone to trade school and was earning good money and had stable employment already. They berated Tommy and Jade like crazy, and I stepped away from the two of them. I said I would only step back in and communicate with Jade if the baby was mine, and I said I'd pay for a DNA test. Even without knowing, they tried to list me as the father on the birth certificate, but luckily I needed to be there, so that's failed. My parents paid for Tommy to take a DNA test the same time I did, and the DNA proved he was the father, not me. Jade begged me to take her back, and she said the baby was really ours no matter what DNA said. I blocked her everywhere after that, and did the same with Tommy. They still tracked me down in public, but I ignored them. I told Tommy we weren't family anymore, and to remember that he was the one who broke up relationship, not me. The baby's about 4 months old now, and my parents are taking issue with the fact I ignore the baby exist. Like, I now ignore that Tommy and Jade exist. They told me I could have sent the baby a gift or something, that I'm still the uncle, if not the father. I told them I wanted nothing to do with the mess, and it's up to Tommy and Jade to figure this thing out. My parents argued that a good uncle was still important, and the baby hasn't done anything to deserve being rejected. I said the baby is innocent, but they're attached to the parents, who are both who deserve nothing from me. I told my parents we were talking about the same people who expected me to believe that I'd raise the kid as my own and they'd stop cheating. Who tried to force my name on the birth certificate? Those people. I said the baby might be doomed, but I don't feel responsible for saving them from that life. My parents said Tommy and Jade need help for the sake of the baby, and the baby's well being should be all anyone cares about. I rolled my eyes, and my parents told me to take this seriously, and there had been a 50% chance the baby was mine. How could all those feelings just vanish like that? They said the baby deserves it, and even Tommy to a point, because no matter what, he's still my brother. I suggested that they should step in if they feel help is so deserved, because I'm not gonna. They said I was breaking their hearts and Tommy's heart, and one day I'd break the baby's heart too, and to think about the bigger picture. So am I the asshole? But what about your heart? Am I the asshole for cancelling my parents' 40th anniversary party after they refused to invite my wife? I, 32 female, have been with my wife Emily, 34 female, for 5 years, married for 2. My parents have never fully accepted my relationship, so they insist they still love me. They didn't come to our wedding, claiming it was too painful for them, but I tried to move past it. Recently, they asked me to plan their 40th anniversary party. I handled everything: the venue, catering, guest list, decorations. I spent months making sure it would be a perfect night for them. But last week, when I went over final details, my mom casually said, "Of course, Emily won't be coming." I was stunned. I asked what she meant, and my dad chimed in saying they didn't want any drama and just wanted a traditional family celebration. I told them that if Emily wasn't invited, I wouldn't be coming either. My mom signed and said, "We just don't want to make people uncomfortable." Why those people are more important than your own child? That broke me. Make people uncomfortable? My wife, who has done nothing but try to be polite to them, isn't welcome at the parties that I organized because they worried about appearances? I told them that if Emily wasn't welcome, neither was their party. I called the venue and cancelled everything. No caterer, no decoration, no celebration. My parents freaked out, saying I was being vindictive and punishing them for their boundaries. My extended family is divided. Some say I was right to stand up for Emily, but others think I overreacted and ruined something that wasn't about me. Now my parents aren't speaking to me, and part of me wonders if I did go too far. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just couldn't justify throwing a party for people who refused to accept my marriage. Am I the asshole for taking away the keys of our house from my husband's ex-wife? A couple of days ago, I came home from a work meeting and was unpleasantly surprised to find my husband's ex-wife wandering around the house, fresh out of the shower, with only a towel wrapped around her body. I felt absolutely hysterical, so I didn't show it. She had the keys because her daughter, who is also my husband's daughter, spends more time at our house than at hers, so she occasionally comes to visit her. This time, I didn't hold back. I demanded that she give me the keys and told her she wasn't allowed to come over while I'm not home. My husband was asleep in the bedroom and had no idea that his ex-wife was even in the house. When I asked my stepdaughter why her mother was stayed, she simply said that she wasn't planning to leave until her dad woke up. My mind immediately interpreted that as an attempt at seduction. In short, I took away the house keys and told her that it wasn't necessary for her to come see her daughter on weekdays, when my stepdaughter went to her house already on weekends. If she needed to come over for something important, she had to ask for permission. She called me crazy, but my husband backed me up, which was the only reason she eventually left without making a scene. Today I started wondering if maybe I overreacted and handled things immaturely, but at the same time I don't want her around my 4 months old baby when I'm not home. I think it's time to set some boundaries here. Am I the asshole for telling my mother-in-law to never undermine me in front of my children? Wife was out of town last weekend for work, so my mother-in-law volunteered to take our 12-year-old triplets to a movie. Before she got to our house to pick them up, I asked my daughter to clean up the mess she made in the kitchen. I asked 2 more times after that, and when my mother-in-law arrived, it still wasn't done. I was starting to get upset, so I asked her again in a more stern tone. She tried to argue back that she did. So I asked about the kettle on the stove that still had food in it. It was at this point that my mother-in-law started criticizing me and saying it wasn't that big of a deal. When I mentioned that we were specifically working with the kids on cleaning up after themselves, she dismissed me and started talking about when she sees things that I don't always put away, like tools and stuff. When they got back, I pulled her off to the side. I told her that I appreciate everything she does for us, but with all due respect, please do not undermine me in front of my kids again, and that I feel extremely disrespected. If she ever disagrees with something I say or do, she is welcome to pull me aside and talk about it in private, but never in front of the kids. Of course, she left crying, and my wife isn't speaking to me. Am I the asshole here? Am I an asshole for walking out of yoga class after the instructor hit on my daughter and kissed her? My mom has been begging me to join her yoga class, so I agreed and brought my daughter, 19 female, along. From the moment we walked in, the instructor, let's call him Chad, mid-40s, thinks he's some sort of spiritual guru, zeroed in on my daughter. He kept complimenting her energy and asking her deep, awkward questions about her soul connections. My deaf grandmother, 85 female, saw what was happening and signed to me that she thought he was cute. Class starts, and my grandma, who has no idea what's going on, starts doing her own random scratches in the back. Meanwhile, Chad keeps adjusting my daughter more than necessary, hands lingering way too long on her waist, whispering things like, relax, feel the flow. She looked super uncomfortable, but he didn't seem to notice. Then, after the class ends, as everyone is packing up, Chet grabs my daughter by the shoulders and leans in for what I can only describe as a full-on kiss on the cheek. My daughter was frozen, absolutely stunned, and I lost it. I rushed over, grabbed her, and told Chet he needed to back off. He just stood there smirking, acting like he has done nothing wrong. I stormed out with my daughter and told my mom that we were never coming back to that studio. Now my mom is furious at me, saying I'm being too dramatic, and my grandma keeps signing he had good energy, you should let it go. Am I the asshole for pulling my daughter out because I feel like this went way beyond just a yoga class? Am I the asshole for refusing to forgive my mother after what she did at my wedding? I got married 3 months ago, and my relationship with my mother has been on thin ice ever since. She was always been dramatic, but I never thought she'd go this far. For context, my mom has never liked my husband. She thinks I settled because he's not a doctor or lawyer like she wanted. She made little comments throughout our engagement, but promised to behave at the wedding. I trusted her. Fast forward to the ceremony. Everything is perfect until the officiant asks if anyone has any objections. My mother stands up. She starts crying and saying she just needs to speak her truth before it's too late. She goes on about how she doesn't think my husband is good enough for me and how she's only doing this because she loves me. Everyone is stunned. My dad, who is divorced from her, has to pull her away, and I stand there in shock. My husband looks at me, waiting for me to say something, but I'm frozen. Eventually, she leaves, and we continue the ceremony. But the damage is done. Half of my guests are whispering. My husband's family is furious. I spent my reception smiling through tears. She sends a long text the next day saying she only wanted to protect me and that I was wrong for not hearing her out. Now my family is pressuring me to forgive her. They say she just had a moment and didn't mean to ruin my day. But I don't want to forgive her. I haven't spoken to her since, and she's acting like I'm the one breaking the family apart. Okay, she knew exactly what she was doing, and it wasn't about the protection, it wasn't about control. So, not the asshole at all. Am I the asshole for kicking my mother in law out of our house after she refused to call our son by his name? My husband, 34 male, and I, 31 female, recently had our first child, a son we named Elijah. We put a lot of thoughts into his name, we loved the meaning, and it just felt right. My mother in law, 62 female, had no strong opinions about it at first. She didn't gush over it, but she also didn't object. Or so we thought. The first time she met Elijah at the hospital, she looked at him and said, "Oh, little David, you're so perfect." I thought I misheard her, so I ignored it. But then she said it again. I asked her, "Who is David?" And she just smiled and said, "Oh, it just suits him better." I was too exhausted from labor to argue, But over the next few weeks, she kept calling him David, texting us things like, "How's my little David doing today?" or "Give David a kiss for me." I told her firmly that his name is Elijah. She laughed and said, "Oh, I know, but I think he just feels like a David." Neither my husband nor I know anyone named David. It's not a family name. There is no sentimental reason behind it. It's just a completely random name she decided to call my child despite us telling her not to. At first, we tried to let it go, hoping she'd stop if we ignored it. But it only got worse. When we FaceTimed her, she'd quit him and said, "Grandma loves you, David." She even started knitting a baby blanket with the name David embroidered on it. This is ridiculous. The final straw was when she came over for a family dinner and kept referring to him as David in front of everyone. My sister in law asked, "Wait, why do you keep calling him David?" And mother in law just laughed and said, "Because that's his name to me." That's when I lost it. I said, "No, his name is Elijah, and if you can't respect that, you don't need to be here." She rolled her eyes and tried to wave me off, but I wasn't having it. I told her to leave. She looked shocked, but she left without much of a fight. Now my husband is upset with me. He agrees that his mom was being weird and disrespectful, but he thinks kicking her out was too extreme and that I should just let it go. Mother-in-law now playing the victim, telling everyone that I'm keeping her grandson from her over a harmless nickname. Some family members think I overreacted. Others agreed that her behavior was bizarre. I don't know, was I really in the wrong for putting my foot down? If she likes this name so much, maybe you should call her David, and let's see how she would react. Am I the asshole for breaking off my engagement with my fiance because of his creepy comments toward my 14-year-old sister? I, 20 female, am in a tough situation, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting, so I need some outside perspectives. I've been with my fiance Charles, 35 male, for about 2 years. 35. She's 20, and he's 35. Okay. And everything seemed fine until recently. A few weeks ago, my 14-year-old sister Amy came to stay with us for just a few days while our parents were out of town. During her stay, I started noticing some really unsettling things. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but Charles started making comments that made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. He would call her so hot and would say things like, "You're going to turn heads when you're older, and you got such a body on you already." The worst part was when he said, "I'd be jealous if I were your boyfriend. Every guy will be looking at you soon." I tried to ignore it at first, but it kept happening, and I began to feel sick to my stomach. Then, one evening, I overheard him telling a friend on the phone, "Amy's got that look now. It's like she's starting to bloom." It was honestly one of the creepiest things I've ever heard. I felt like I was losing my mind, and I just knew I couldn't stay in that relationship anymore. I confronted him about his behavior, and he immediately got defensive. He denied it and said I was being paranoid and that I should trust him. He insisted that he was just being nice and that I was overreacting. Okay, but that's not nice to talk like that about 14 years old kid, okay? I didn't care. I packed my things, broke off the engagement, and moved back in with my parents. Now my friends and some family members are telling me I overreacted. They say I should talk it out with him first, but I don't see how that would change anything. So am I the asshole for breaking up with my fiance because of his creepy comments toward my little sister? And we have an update, so it's been a few months since I left Charles, and I wanted to update everyone on what happened after. After I moved back home, I stuck to my decision and completely cut contact with him. At first, he tried to guilt trip me with messages like, "I can't believe you'd throw everything away over a misunderstanding." Nice misunderstanding. And I was just being nice and you twisted it into something disgusting. But it is disgusting, oh my god! I ignored him. Then he got angrier, accusing me of ruining his life and trying to turn my family against him. I didn't respond. But then things took a turn. My parents, who were initially on the fence and thought I overreacted, started paying closer attention to Amy. One night she broke down and admitted that Charles had made her even more uncomfortable than I realized. Apparently, when I wasn't in the room, he would compliment her body and ask her if she had a boyfriend in a way that made her feel weird. She said she didn't want to tell me at first because she was afraid of causing problems between us. But that's not her who's causing problems. That was it for my parents. My dad was livid, and my mom was horrified. They immediately supported my decision and even called out the family members who had been defending Charles. As for Charles, things got worse for him. I found out from a mutual friend that his ex-girlfriend before me, who was also much younger, had similar suspicions about him. And why I'm not even surprised. She reached out to me and said she always had a bad feeling about him around teenage girls, but didn't have solid proof. Now, most of my family was backed off and stopped blaming me. The ones who still think I overreacted are people I no longer care to associate with. I'm just relieved I trusted my instincts. Looking back, I can't believe I ever doubted myself. I don't even want to think about what could have happened if I had ignored my gut feeling. So, for anyone reading this, if something feels off, trust yourself. I'm so grateful I did. Am I the asshole for refusing to stop using my embarrassing lunchbox at work? I, 28 male, bring my lunch to work every day in a bright blue Pokemon lunchbox. I've had it for years, and I don't think much about it. It's just the perfect size, keeps my food cold, and honestly, I think it's kinda fun. Well, it is fun. Recently, a new coworker, Matt, 35 male, started making comments about it. At first, it was just joking around, stuff like, nice lunchbox, dude, my kid has the same one. Whatever, I left it out. But then he kept bringing it up, saying it was unprofessional and that I should grow up and get a real lunch bag. Maybe he should stop telling people what they need to do with their lunch boxes. I told him I didn't see the issue and that it's literally just a lunch box. But last week, he took it further, telling me in front of our coworkers that it was weird for a grown man to be carrying around kid stuff. I told him he should worry less about my lunchbox and more about his own life. Nice. Now he's been acting cold toward me, and a couple of coworkers said I was being too harsh, that he was just messing around. But I don't see why I should change something harmless just because one guy thinks it's weird. And you definitely shouldn't. Am I the asshole for not serving as much food as I know my dinner guests will want to eat? First, I want to be clear that I do not believe in body shaming or food policing, having lost 10 pounds myself and working on another 50. I have no place to judge anyone for what they eat. I pride myself of being a generous host who makes my guests comfortable and feeds them well. Nobody leaves my house hungry has always been my rule. The problem. I have a friend group who meets monthly at either mine or John's home for dinner. Nobody else has enough space to host. Recently, Polly announced she had a girlfriend, which made us all happy. Polly has been lonely for a long time. I was the first to host Melissa. Melissa is 5 to 600 pounds. I've never met anyone that big, but I hid my surprise and was warm and welcoming. No problem. I have started furniture. For dinner, I served bowls of salad and soup. Melissa insisted on keeping her empty bowls at the table. I didn't think much of it. I'm not Emily Post. Then I brought out the main course. Two 9 by 13 pans of 14-layer lasagna, cut into 8 pieces each. There were 10 of us altogether. I told people to dig in as I got the bread out of the oven. When I got back to the dining room, everyone looked so shocked I thought my cat has farted. His mouse farts could suffocate an elephant. Then I saw that Melissa had 4 pieces of lasagna heaped on her plate, 2 in her salad bowl and 2 in her soup bowl. Oh my god, that's literally the whole pan. She takes half of the food that should have been for 10 people. 10. Polly was glaring like, don't you dare say a word. Melissa seemed utterly obvious. I didn't know what to do. I just sat down, cause it's rude to be honest. John and I shared 1 piece of lasagna and everyone else got a full piece. I cut the cake into equal portions for dessert, but I had to make an extra batch of sauce and get an extra tube of ice cream out. Melissa ate at least a liter. The next month, on John's turn, she served every course pre-plated, and when Melissa asked for extra, John apologized and said there was none. Truth, John is very organized and precise. Melissa and Polly left right after the dinner, and Polly texted John, berating her for controlling Melissa's eating. Polly also texted me, saying she trusted I'd be sensitive to Melissa's needs on my next turn. That turn is almost here. My plan was roast dinner, pork and beef. I can easily make lots of cheap vegetables and dessert, but meat is pricey right now, and I'd have to serve twice the norm to satisfy Melissa. I know I cannot just trust she'll take a tenth of what's there, considering she grabbed a whole lasagna last time. So do I suck it up and just buy much larger roast? Do I make a few big batches of cheap soup and biscuits and serve that, rather than strain my budget? I don't want to upset Melissa or be a stingy host, but I have never dealt with someone like this before. I was obese, but I would have eaten maybe 2 pieces of lasagna, not 8. Do I just serve a reasonable sized meal and tell Polly and Melissa sorry that's all I have? Am I the asshole if I serve less food that I know my guests will want? And added to add. Everyone in the group who doesn't cook, so 7 people before Melissa joined, chips in $25 per meal to whoever hosts. That, until inflation got so bad, covered enough of the food cost to make it feasible. John and I have both been simplifying our menus a bit to deal with rising costs, but the idea is to give ourselves and our friends a night off from the humdrum world and pretend we live glamorous, elegant lives. We use the fine china and dress nicely and play classical music. Right before Melissa, I was going to ask if we could increase the chip-in to $30 a plate. I have the most resources out of anyone in the group, and I can afford to go out of pocket a bit more than John. None of the rest have the money, space, or culinary skills to put this together. John and I can cook like Julia Child. We are ragtag lot with a variety of neurodivergence and mental health issues. These meals give us something special to look forward to. Okay, hear me out. Melissa should learn how to be a guest. Oh, don't come back. My wife put down our dog without telling me while I was out of town. So, this just happened, and I'm still trying to process it. My wife, 36 female, and I, 38 male, have been married for 10 years, and we've had Bella, our golden retriever, for 12 of them. Bella has been my rock. She's seen us through a lot, moves, job changes, family issues. I always felt like she was my companion as much as she was our family dog. I had to go on a work trip for about a week, and before I left, Bella was slowing down a bit. But she wasn't that bad. She was old, yes, but still getting around. I asked my wife to keep an eye on her, and she agreed. Fast forward to yesterday. I get home from the trip, and the house is eerily quiet. No excited barking. No Bella waiting at the door. My wife comes out of the kitchen, and I immediately ask where Bella is. That's when she tells me she took her to the vet and put her down. I didn't even know Bella was that sick, and my wife made the decision without me. I wasn't there to say goodbye, and I feel completely blindsided. I lost it, and told her she had no right to do that without telling me first. She got emotional and said Bella was in pain. The vet advised it, and she thought she was sparing me from seeing Bella suffer. But I can't believe she didn't even call me. She knows how much Bella meant to me. Now, I'm heartbroken and furious. I get that maybe it was the right decision, but it feels like I was robbed of my chance to say goodbye to my dog, my best friend. My wife's been crying and saying she did it for Bella, but I can't shake the feelings that she was overstepped in a huge way. For your information, my wife has a habit of overreacting to things, and I'm afraid she did it this time as well. I've called the vet but haven't gotten a response yet. So am I the asshole for being angry and thinking she should waited to at least talk to me first? Or am I being unreasonable? Am I the asshole for being brutally honest to my wife about cheating? So this happened over the past weekend. We were at the party with friends and this question popped up. We essentially had a small never had I ever game, which is pretty childish looking back, but we're all in our late 20s so it's not that bad. One of the questions was, never have I ever forgiven a partner for cheating. A few people counted that as something they did, including my wife. I expressed my surprise about it, since I wouldn't expect her, of all people, to give someone a chance after cheating. Other than that, the night went on just fine, and I was driving us home. I don't drink, I hate alcohol. I asked her about the whole situation with forgiving a partner for cheating. In her words, her ex boyfriend of so many years back cheated on her. He came clean about it and they tried again. But then he went and did it again in the same manner. She said she didn't regret giving him a second chance and would do the same if I happened to cheat. I figure this is just her being drunk. I have no intention of cheating on her. In absence of any answer from me, she asks if I do the same for her. I bluntly told her that I wouldn't be able to forgive cheating, nor would I ever expect to be forgiven for cheating if I somehow ended up doing it. It's the worst thing you can do to someone you love. I don't know what happened to her after that, but she stopped talking to the rest of the car ride. Ever since then, she's been silent around me. She isn't her usual bubbly self and is withdrawn when I have conversations with her. She avoids any questions about what happened on Saturday night, too. I asked our mutual friends about any context I may have missed, and a few of them said that she must have taken it a bit too hard. As in me, not being able to forgive her for hypothetical cheating means I don't love her as much as she loves me. The two oldest friends kind of implied that I shouldn't have been so blunt about it.